Welcome into the Owner to Owner podcast. Rosie, who's the founder and director of Ivy League, joins me. Ivy League Drips, I'm sorry, joins me today. Big welcome, Rosie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Um, you're, we'll get into your business in a minute. What we're going to chat about, you've had a hell of a ride so far
I have.
since you founded your business in 2018. Today, it's got something like 165 licensees around Australia, I think, or is that?
Going to 200 now since we last spoke. We've been
Okay.
doing they've been booked out for I think every month. So we do one monthly now. So close to 200 now.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's that's some pace there. But far from being easy, your attitude's incredible. We had a chat 6 7 weeks ago about coming on, and your energy uh, and spirit is wonderful. So,
Thank you.
um, but what we want to draw out of you today, Rosie, is in getting to where you are today, you
Mhm.
you basically went out of business twice.
Yes.
You've rebuilt, and here we are today. So, in terms of some themes, I really want to chat about the things that drove you to get back up off the floor
Yeah.
twice, and what that entailed, what you should do differently another time, and some kind of really hard won advice for other owners who might
Yeah.
be doing it a bit tough at the moment. So yeah, big welcome.
Thank you.
What's your background, and tell us a little bit about your business currently.
Okay, so we'll start off with a little bit about what Ivy League Drips is. My background's actually in pharmacy, predominantly pharmacy because it was a much longer degree, and then nursing. I really didn't practice, as in I worked in both industries for a very short amount of time before I took a break and then decided, okay, this is what I really wanted to do was start my own business. So there was always that drive to really want to start my own business. And obviously in the realm of what I had studied in for over 7 years. And that's where Ivy League Drapes sort of was birthed. The idea was really from overseas because it was quite dominant there, the Ivy Drip business. And now it's sort of branched out into quite a few different things, not just vitamin IV drip. So we do blood testing, we do a lot of integrative health services such as like bioidentical hormones therapy, peptides, etc. So that's just a little outline of what the business is. We won't go too
You,
much into that because I know the conversation wants to be more on how I can really put my advice out there for some business owners.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what we spoke about last time, Michael, was the setbacks I had at the very beginning. Um, Look, in my experience, I find that when I speak to business owners who are quite successful, there's always going to be a moment where like they hit rock bottom. And I was lucky. I was lucky in a sense that I hit rock bottom quite early on and like back to back as well.
Was that
Because
not too long out of uni that you had your first setback?
yes. Yeah, so I was quite young. Tried to start the business when I was about 25,
That is
25.
young. And but
Yeah.
did you come from a small business family background, or was it just innate in you that you wanted to be a business owner rather than nothing wrong with it, but a
Yeah.
professional or a technician or whatever in a job?
So my dad is he was, sorry, he's retired now. He was a CEO of a pretty big company, of Alsco. And so I did grow up with a lot of, I guess watching him is very high performing exec. I don't know if my entrepreneurship sort of nature came from that, but it definitely shaped the way I worked. Like, so work ethic was really big in the family. Um, I was always, I never really imagined myself starting my own business, but I was also very independent and stubborn. So when I did work for people, which I have since I was 15, I found that I had a lot of problems with authority. Been fired a few times.
But you had good self-awareness about it though.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I guess the only option I had was starting my own business, right?
So you ruled out all the other things. Couldn't get a job, not employable, too feisty or spirited.
Definitely feisty came
That's
through.
great.
So
Yeah.
I think it came from a few different angles, and then I was also very headstrong as well. So I think starting my own business was definitely a vision that came a little bit after I came out of uni, and it sort of just developed. But I did know that whatever it was that I wanted to do, I wanted to be really good at it. So yeah, so
Did it? Yeah, that has got to start with that, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah,
you can go along the road and make some turns, but you got to fundamentally want to be there. Did
yeah.
that set you apart from your peers out of uni? Were you one of a very small number taking the entrepreneurial business founding route?
Um, I absolutely. I was definitely one of the outliers that knew very early on that I didn't want to work in the industry as a very that traditional way, whether it was going into community, whether it was going to hospital, it was going into industrial. I knew quite early on. I always had a very big drive about you know, being successful, I guess. Like that was a big driver behind what I was wanting to do as well, because I felt like I was always the one working at uni. So I would be the one that did skip a lot of the lectures and tutorials just to go to work. I worked about 3 to 4 jobs studying as well.
Unbelievable.
So
What were those jobs, Rosie? Like,
oh God, I worked everywhere. I worked in retail. So my first job was in retail in Supre, if anyone remembers that. Um, and then I worked as a nanny as well. So I did babysitting nanny. I worked in some promotional work. I worked at a pharmacy as well. And then I also worked at the casino in Sydney. So the Star.
well, that's a pretty diverse range
Exactly.
of jobs at a tender age. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but incredible life experience. I like
100%. Yeah, it
yeah, I have
definitely
two
taught me.
daughters, and they both worked hard through uni and just after school to because they liked earning
Mm,
some money, but
yeah.
and keeping themselves busy, and it's yeah, just it's excellent. It's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, it definitely taught me, I guess, even working in such a range of different environments, it teaches you such different skills, which I use to this day. 100% still use to this day.
What do you think they are? Mainly that is it like communication, dealing with people?
Communication, definitely communication and understanding sort of like social behaviors, working alongside people as well. So seeing how like different management skills I picked up. It's funny now because I caught up with the director of where I used to work in the casino. He now has moved to Singapore. When I was in Singapore, he's the one who fired me. And he actually now he when we had a conversation over dinner, he said, "Do you understand why I fired you?" And I said, "I absolutely do, because I go through the same issues now with my own stuff." So just understanding growth and even understanding marketing. So the power of like why certain things worked so well in certain times, and but I would say the biggest thing is really handling yourself around different sorts of people.
Yeah.
And how to manage. And that was a big thing I learned, especially working at the casino. So I actually learned a lot from working at the casino, which is interesting because you don't relate health background to casino, for example.
Yeah, yes, it's but that mix, retail and being a nanny. I mean, they're all just incredible life experience,
Yeah.
and it demonstrates a preparedness to do. You obviously had a strong desire to learn, but also to earn while you were doing that, and
Yeah,
cutting
definitely.
lectures. You got through the course fine,
I did.
and you set you up for where you are today.
Yeah.
So the can we go back to call it event number one? Like you were still
Yeah.
young, how long had your business been running for when you hit this first really significant road bump,
Mm.
and what was the issue, the cause behind that?
So when I first started, I was quite young. I had absolutely no business background whatsoever. Like you could call it a negative knowledge. I guess my first error was really going into it without researching, without understanding, and also, my parents weren't very favorable of me starting a business. I'm being the youngest of five kids. They really wanted their youngest daughter to take like a nice, easy life, and so they really wanted me to have a 9 to 5. And I understand why, but I was very headstrong, and I was like, nope, I'm doing this, and so they just kind of let me be. So I didn't really have my dad's a helpful support back then either, because he really wanted me to go down the corporate route. So when I
Because you
first,
were very well placed. You had a
yeah,
you had a degree experience, and I could only imagine the pathways were really,
there, just
I
handed
mean,
to me.
maybe not safe, but certainly attractive.
Yes,
From and you can look at a long-term career, but yeah.
yeah,
So you had to
exactly.
battle that one.
So I kind of went into this just going, okay, well, I'm doing this myself, and I'll work it out. So I made a lot of errors, even down to, the company structure. So I did meet, I was introduced to someone who offered essentially for them to be my business partner, which I guess I didn't even back then, you don't understand the complexity and the weight of that you don't go into business someone that you met after a week, which I essentially did. And doing a 50-50 split as well is insane for someone that you've just met, and it's when you've got a vision and an idea. So it was a very good learning experience. I financially backed it, and so I did put but essentially all my savings into that first rodeo. And I think within 8 months, it all unfolded. So it was just, personality clashes, and, having someone 50-50 who you don't know really well, or your personalities don't align well. It's completely just a disaster, recipe for disaster. And so that unfolded quite quickly, quite bad. And
Was
then,
that sorry? Was
sorry.
that a moment where you thought there's a bit of excitement, a bit of buzz? We're going to change, do whatever you're going to do in the
Yeah.
business, and this seems like a good idea. Why not? Was it that
Yeah,
sort of
absolutely.
innocent, or
Yeah, the first few months you think, you've made it. You think this is it. This is my dream coming true. Like I found someone who's just as passionate as me. And
yeah,
you've got that first like that elation where you're just like, "Oh my God, we align so well." and
yeah.
and you get into this without actually, and now, I look back, and when we have licensees coming and they tell me, I'm going into business, the first, like, I really need to like question this. And to be honest, out of all our licensees, there's only very, very, very small percentage I've seen in partnerships that have worked out. Most of them haven't. And I think it just goes back to my initial feeling, because you feel like, you've got a support person, you've got someone there. When in reality, you look back and you think, I didn't actually need that. And so, yeah, the first 2 months were amazing, and then it unfolded so quickly.
Yeah, look, and you're certainly far from alone. When I come across in the work I do, businesses, often they're uh, family owned.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're two partners, two friends, and the ones that survive, they kind of look at me when I say, you don't know how fortunate you are. I mean, you've done all the right things, but so many business partnerships, family or others kinds of structures fail.
Hmm.
And it's not that, I don't think it's that business partnerships are bad. It's just that people seem to lurch at them with this great idea that 1 plus 1 equals
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
And really, it's not about the partnership model. It's more about going back, and I think you just hinted at it. What did I really actually need in a business partner? What did the
Exactly.
business need, and what do they bring? It's kind of fairly simple in theory, but it
Mm,
takes a fair bit of effort to work your way through
mm.
those things when you're just so excited about getting on
I
with it.
know. Yes, that's it. I think you just get so jaded by like just wanting to start and head off without really setting the expectations. So I think I would definitely I've looked into doing partnerships actually only recently. I did promise myself after a few years I would never do that again, but I think now I've had a little bit more experience in business. I would actually do it again, but very I think both people have to bring for it to work different things to the table and very clear expectations on who is to make take charge. And I think it's just it's like a marriage essentially that
it
it's a lot
the
of work and time.
the relationship analogy is so powerful and so right. It
Yeah.
is. It's a coming together of two, maybe sometimes three people, but who
Yeah.
does what, um, and then role, being clear about what and not stepping over the
No,
line.
exactly.
But it's so hard. It's where good advisors, I'm sure you sound like it's reflected in the way you go about working with licensees, but good advisors
100%.
will say to you, if you're contemplating, and if you take the effort to ask somebody, the
Mm-hmm.
good ones will say, these are, think about it, not so much if it goes really well, how are you going to share the spoils? What if it goes really wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to exit this?
Yes.
And it's kind of brutal, but if you haven't thought about that
Yeah.
and potentially even architected a few situations of sort of conflict to see how both parties work together when there's a bit of pressure on,
Mm-hmm.
you've kind of, it's easy to look back, but that's what I've
So
seen work
true.
so often. Yeah. Um,
Definitely, because it's so easy if when things are going well and everyone's happy, it's so easy to just, keep going. But it's when things go bad is really when you see the true strength of any sort of relationship, especially work. And I think you're completely right. Having those uncomfortable conversations at the very beginning before you even start is what's necessary. Because if you can't speak about it before you even get into the business, there's no hope down the track. And I had none of those conversations beforehand.
yeah, yeah.
We just jumped
Um,
straight in.
how did that potential partner, come to you? Or did you go to them?
No, I was introduced to her by a friend, and so she was a bit older than me, quite a few years older than me. So she had experience in running clinics beforehand, and so in my mind, I thought, great, you've got experience in this. Then you're gonna be fine as a partner.
Mm.
Where in reality, there's so many more aspects which I've learnt now. So that's how we were introduced.
Okay. And what would you like? I'm putting you on the spot, but
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sure you've thought about this tons.
definitely.
What what are two or three things you would do differently, specifically with someone else drops in tomorrow
Hmm.
that is a potential partner to go to 500 licensees?
Yes.
What kind of due diligence or checking or personal validation are you looking to do to make sure that there are, well, not to make sure, but to at least go another few steps with them?
Yeah. I've definitely thought about this, Michael. So, one of the main things I would, if I was to go to partnership with anyone, it would be that they bring something to the table that I can't bring. So that's the main one. So it would have to be that, and it would, if it was financial, if I really needed something financially, whether it's financials, or for me, it's more what they can bring in experience, what they can bring from their own knowledge of, and the business that we're about to start. That's the first main thing. And then the second thing would be definitely now that I know myself a lot more in business, I know my sort of type and how I work. So it would have to be someone who would complement that really well. So I'm quite a um dominant personality that doesn't like to like I'm not very good with I can listen depending on who it is, but once I set my mind to something, it's quite hard. It's for me, it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm quite decisive, very decisive,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So that the person I know would need to somewhat be happy for me to take charge, and that conversation would have had to be very early on, and you can kind of tell by just speaking to someone, if they are willing to, follow lead, or if they're the same type of personality as myself, would probably clash very, very strong. So I think those are the main two things
Yeah.
that I've thought
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, it's yeah, excellent self-awareness, and it's important. Does part of your thinking about this extend to beyond you to the business though? Like the
Yeah.
business is you have a vision for the business. I want to be at 1,000 licensees. I want to be global or whatever it might be. So what are the gaps for the business?
Mm,
You can do your leading visionary role. You can be the
yeah.
head CEO, the head of whatever. But is that part of your thinking? So you do see that there'll be some things that you don't like doing, that maybe there are people who can do it better.
Mm. Look, absolutely. I definitely look at the gaps of the business, the visions, and where I would go. But instead of, I guess, bringing someone into the business in terms of like equity or partnerships, I definitely know that I would rather hire. Definitely rather hire.
Yeah. Okay.
For
Yeah.
me, that's the
Yeah.
advice I usually give my licensees is, unless, because, like we said, it really is like a marriage. It's like it's a long-term situation. It's not, and you need to talk about the exit strategies, and there's so much that comes down to it. Even like, financially, how do you pay out dividends, something so simple, and looking at all these things, it's just much easier. There's some great advisors in this world that you could just hire. And
Yeah.
and that's not a that's that's getting into a short-term relationship, a test trial.
Yeah.
I think if it would be someone I would potentially, that if it was to bring in something like for myself, my existing business, it would really have to be something drastic, as if like I was to move overseas and I
Right.
needed someone long term who was really passionate about what I wanted to do and wanted to continue my vision. But unless it's something drastic in my life that would change, I would just keep it to hiring.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that make look. You're on a pathway. It's so great to hear that,
Yeah.
and I think the yeah, if you take that business down perspective, it's not like it's also you don't have to go and plug every gap tomorrow, right? You're on a
Mhm.
you've had a couple of bumps and you're really traveling nicely. So I think there's something about the business partnerships. It's also they should take a bit of time.
Yeah.
They're really good ones because you don't want it's you kind of hinted at transactional relationships. Where someone comes in and does a bit of work for you, or
Mm.
but a true long-term business partnership, if it takes, I guess you're eyeing off decades of building this business, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, a few months, a year or two, to allow for the right partner to really
Come in.
prove to themselves and to you
Mhm.
that they're good for it I think that's a good investment of time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think for myself, I would only really go into business with someone after working with them for about a year. Because then
Yeah,
you really you see some up and downs, you see how they, react in certain situations, and it kind of needs to be quite aligned. Because, I mean, as you know, every day there's some sort of challenge, and there's some
yeah,
smaller than others, but you need to really, to get through those, and with someone that you're working alongside, be able to kind of steer in the same direction.
yeah, yeah. So that was bump number one.
Yeah.
Roll on a couple of years. What was bump number two?
No, so bump number two happened very, very early on, but it wasn't too big of a bump.
Oh, okay.
So it was so after that first bump, so after that really
We'll
the
call that the partnership
dissolved,
bump.
yeah, the partnership dissolved. Um, I really had lost all my savings at that point. So I was real that was one of my really like rock bottom moments. And so my parents also being in the background, the whole told you so.
They actually said that?
I got the whole told you so talk, which actually, like to their like despair, it works the opposite in my personality. So the told you so makes me go, no, I'm going to now even go more stubborn and harder at this. So they weren't very happy that I wanted to start again. They thought I was actually insane. But I did start again, and it was a lot harder because this time I didn't have any savings behind myself. And as any new business owner knows, it's extremely hard, especially when you're not paying yourself for X
Yeah.
amount of time. So
Yeah.
I really, I remember moments like where I was trying to get the business started. I was going on Seek, looking at job applications, and like it was that whole tear between like, am I going to be eating wheat bix for the rest of the next 6 months, or am I just going to keep going? And I did have a lot of perseverance, luckily, and I did get started again. But then within, I think the next, it was like 8 months, and then the next 6 months within that time when everything was still quite a struggle, I did get introduced to a business advisor, who like I should have learned the first time, but I didn't learn the first time from. It took me a while to learn to really do your research and get to know the person. But no, he's me just jumping straight into another sort of work relationship, as you might call it. And this particular person actually was in quite a bit of financial distress themselves, which I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
And essentially, we only worked, it was a short amount of time, about 1 to 2 months. But back then it was quite a big hit because all the money I had saved or like got together in the first few months, I put into like website design and the marketing and logos and everything that you can think of. And it wasn't a huge amount of money. It was
But it was a lot of what you had,
it was
or
a lot. It
nearly
was
all of
everything
what
I
you had.
had. It
Yeah.
was $10,000. So it's everything I
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
And I eventually found out that they were editing the invoice of the. So what happened was they basically said to me, I will look after the invoices for you. So, just pay them through here, and then I will make sure the work is getting done, which now that I look back, that is not what a business advisor does.
That was
Um,
like a cash grab
it was a
at
cash
your
grab.
yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
essentially transferring money straight to his account, thinking I was paying different contractors.
Yeah.
And that all unfolded after 1 or 2 months. I was lucky to get the money back, but I think after that moment, that really hit me because I was sort of already at rock bottom, and then it just sent me over the edge.
So
So that was a hard learning lesson.
yeah. So firstly, how did you get your money back? Is that just you pursued them and they
I,
said, "Oh, we've done the wrong thing. Here it is," or
I believe so. Back then, I had some mutual friends who were quite aggressive when they found out about it to say
right?
sort of this is your wrongdoing, and you need to pay her back. And so it did
Okay.
take a few months to get back, though. It was a while,
Mm.
but I did eventually get it back. And I think that was one of the points. I think every business is what I mean when I speak about every business owner has that point where they go, do I just give up right now? Because this is every sign is pointing to this is not working out.
Yeah. Because the opportunity cost was probably quite high because you're still not that long out of uni.
No.
The bright lights of a corporate or a job in industry were probably still there, and
Yep.
You definitely had all that on your side. So yeah, to pick it up, but it's a good example of a positive example of having some good supporters around you as well,
Yeah.
because that, there was an advisor who was in a bad situation.
Mm.
That's their problem, but they made it yours. But you've also had somebody else who in your network who said to that person, look, this is not right,
Yeah.
make it right. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of positive support that sometimes it is, transactional, right? That's
Yeah.
an example where they go, this is just not right. They're not, they just want the right thing done,
Yeah.
and they helped you. So
Yeah, no, so it was very like helpful to have that person around. And I did have some really good support from friends around me. So
yeah,
I definitely had a lot of support in that sense. And where I guess, working at the casino the whole time I was studying, which was essentially 5 years, I did know a lot of people in Sydney. So I had a lot of connections which were really great to reach out to, and who supported I guess the start of the business as well, just getting the word out there.
yeah, and then also cared enough about you to
Yeah,
say, look, here I can help you here.
exactly. Exactly. So those were my two big, I guess, setbacks, which
Yeah.
I'm actually glad happened right at the start, because it now upon reflection, whenever something doesn't go right or there's a big challenge in the business, I always think back to that time and I go, nothing could be worse than that. And if
Well,
you could pick yourself
yeah,
back up then, you're good.
yeah, and that's that grounding. It's unless you've been through that, I think if you're in small business, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have those things, and
Oh,
it's
100%.
not. It's definitely not for everybody, and it's probably one of the things in looking to go into business with somebody.
Mm,
How would they? Because you can't control everything. Things just go
no.
pear shaped. So you've been through it a few times.
Hmm.
You've had the resilience and the resolve to get, to go to fight on. And I do want to talk about why you're in business and what you got planned. But it's pretty, and to have that attitude that you're glad you went through it is the right way to. No
Hmm.
one wants to have that sort of stress, and
No.
but it is, if you can capitalize and learn from it, it is so powerful
Hmm.
for the next stages of the business, and potentially as a way to look at maybe down the track. There's some partners that might want to help you grow the business even further, and when you're thinking about the sacrifices you've made,
Yeah.
would they make the same ones if things weren't going to plan?
I
So
completely agree. It's actually what gets me through a lot of the challenges over the last 8 years. So it's been a big it was such a good learning experience to go, you can hit that low and still keep going. And so anything that gets thrown, and also you build how to deal with stress as well. So like knowing, okay, you can keep going and still be like feeling like rock bottom. And I think that has helped me through every challenge I've had in the last 8 years.
so before we move on to where you're at with the business, how are your mum and dad and at the moment, and what's they
So
must be
proud.
incredibly proud. Yeah, I'm sure they are.
So proud.
Tough
Yeah.
love.
Yeah, it
Mm.
was. It was, look, I understand from their point of view as well. I completely understand from their point of view why they wanted the safest sort of
Yeah,
easy, because it hasn't been easy, and I think that's what they were like. We just don't want you to go through that hard. You don't need to go through the
yeah,
hard stuff. You're okay. And
yeah.
I was like, no, I want to do the hard stuff.
You're the number five, right? The
The
youngest
baby of
had
the
to always
family.
had to prove themselves.
Yes, exactly. No, they're over the moon now. They're
That's
very
great.
happy, very proud. Still a little bit shocked that we're here today, like as in how far we've gotten. But
Mm.
my dad actually did step in towards when he retired about 3 years ago. So he's been a very great advisor and mentor. So which has been very helpful as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic to
Yeah.
hear. So, I want to kind of go back a bit, but why are you in this business? What do you want from your business, and
Mhm.
where are you going to take it? I know you can't talk like intimately about
Mm. The
the
details.
workings of the business, but your motivations for having a business and where you want to
Yeah.
take this. Can you talk some more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are in the space of preventative health, which was quite a big gap. So one of, I guess, the strengths that we had starting this was it was virtually unknown in Australia. It was a very untouched space. So the timing I got really right. That's definitely has been a massive impact on the growth of the business. Is the fact that I could see that it was very dominant in the US, especially, and Australia generally follows the trends of the US. Where in Australia, preventative health was quite backwards, about 5 years behind. So, breaking into that industry was difficult, very difficult, especially with it not being known, especially the vitamin
Yeah.
IV drips. But it was about just educating people and getting them to understand and being so prevalent in the US, if it wasn't going to be worthwhile for someone to be in that space or utilizing those services, it wouldn't have grown as fast and so widespread across the US. So I just knew it was a matter of time. It was until it kind of followed that same trend. So the first few years was quite difficult to break in, but we did get the timing really correct. And so by the year 2 or 3, we had a lot of people traveling to see us. So interstate, from rural areas, whether they were catching public transport for a few hours just to see us. And that's where I guess I was like, okay, how do I make this accessible? And we went through a few different ideas of like opening up different clinics throughout the states, but that would have taken years and years and a very long time. And so the licensing model was really just to the main goal behind that was to make our service accessible throughout Australia. And even in the most remote towns. And that's sort of what we built that licensing model. I mean, it's a very unique licensing model. It's completely sort of developed from scratch, but it essentially allows the service to be in every little suburb, state, rural area, wherever really in Australia.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
and a licensee, yeah, they've effectively licensed your technology, your know-how, and they're building their little business.
Yes.
They're not their little, their business
Yeah.
in an area local to them, and bringing this service where it might not otherwise be.
Yeah.
So you've got a whole lot of business partners. Really, they're all incented to keep growing.
Yeah, yeah. So how it works is essentially it's not a big fee to join on. We do a 2-day training. The monthly fee is very, very low. And
Mm.
so but we wholesale to them the vitamins and the product. So we only really will do well unless they do well as well. And
Yeah.
it's sustainable for essentially a practitioner in, a very rural town to only be doing a few appointments a week. Because at the end of the day, we take such a small membership fee, which is actually it's $99, which is
Yeah.
tiny. I mean,
Yep.
that's less than some gym memberships. And so it's so we built that on the basis that this would be able to be feasible for even the smallest rural areas.
Okay. Yeah. So part of your vision for your business is to have it available right across the
Yeah,
country. Yeah.
yeah. It was
And
to
so
make it.
distribution is via licensees and yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which has worked
Um
really well.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's yeah, say you're on the nearly up to 200.
Yeah.
Can you so your motivations, personal motivations, which must be to go through what you've gone through, is it financial? Is it purpose? Is it doing your own thing? Is it a combination of all those things? What drives you to keep going?
I would say definitely purpose. I say that because I find that if your main goal is financial, you kind of lose sight of how to really make a great product or service. In business, it's always that fine line because you do need to make sure that the financials are working well and you have the right team to kind of guide you. But for my role, I guess, as the director and the person who comes up with all the new ideas and drives the direction of the business, I think it has to be I need to constantly go back to purpose. So what it is that we're really wanting, what it is that drives me as well. So watching the licensees thrive is really what my mission and goal now is, because the best service that they can provide is then what they can give to the general population. And so I always go back to, like I said, it is always a fine line because at the end of the day, you are in business. But I find that also when I look at my licensees who are very passionate about what they do, they eventually do well. It's a matter of time. And so I think for me, it's definitely just watching them grow, watching the amount of people they help as well, is what keeps me going.
Yeah. Okay. And is that the key to success? It sounds like, I'm assuming your technology or your
Yeah,
your
our
vitamins
protocols and everything. Yeah,
protocols, that's all sorted, locked away. But more licensees equals more impact, more turnover, more success.
exactly. Yeah. So I think as long as my vision and is focused on bettering them, it's eventually going to reflect in the financials of the side of the business. But as I find that every time I kind of deter from that, my choices are a little bit not as well as if I just focused on the purpose itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you learned a lot about people in all the things you've done. So that
Yeah.
you feel like you must be doing a good job of choosing, identifying, partnering with licensees, because 200's it's a fairly significant
Yeah.
force.
It is it's a lot of licensees, it's a lot of people. I'm still learning how to manage them because we did grow quite fast over the last 3 years. So we are still, getting the hang of like managing them, but that's just about finding the right team. So the right team with the same attitude as myself, is understanding the stresses in business as well, and how to help and how to kind of resolve things and problems that they come up with.
And do you have a base of advisors now that help you from financially, HR?
Oh yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so I've got essentially very, very good advisors, especially in the financial part. So, my dad being one of the main ones, with my accountant and our bookkeeper. So they really keep things in check, and I think um that is absolutely pivotal in any business now that
Yeah,
I've got that. So
couldn't agree more.
they do, like, yeah, I can't explain when I see a licensee growing too fast. We have a meeting straight away to say, what structures do you have in place, because it is so important. And to have those people who have years and years of experience as well, not just a few years. So I do have an office manager who works full time in the office, who does all our reconciliations and management reports for like cash flow, etc. However, I do have, a chartered accountant who's really, really there to observing, to analyze, and also give me a better understanding of the health of the business. So
Yep.
that is probably, I would say, such a pivotal part of where I've grown as well. And then I do have, for my sector of business, obviously being health, I've always had very great mentors in that space. So people who've been in the space that I have been in for over 10, 15 years, minimum. And so following their direction, them understanding the industry, having their guidance as well, has been really, really important.
Yeah. Are they people you reached out to, or that found their way to you, these mentors?
I'm a big opportunity, like, I will go for opportunities. So the
Yeah.
moment I see that, okay, there's like like an event where I potentially could meet someone in that space, I will
Yeah.
attend. And I used
Yeah.
to do that so much in the first few years, not so
Yeah.
much anymore, but in the first few years, I would go to any sort of networking event, especially when it came to anything in my industry, and just putting yourself out there, just asking for help. I've got definitely when you know what when you come from rock bottom, you lose a lot of pride.
Yeah. Well, you gain humility, right?
Yes. And you'll ask anyone for help at that point. And I think,
Yeah.
being gone through that, you think you remember the sort of desperation that you really feel during that time. And so nothing really makes you shy to ask for what you want or help, or mentorship.
Yeah. Look, it's such an important thing to if you can get some people around who, it's like, you don't, you talked about having a couple of dodgy business
Oh
partners,
yeah.
but we all need people around us, the right people,
Yeah.
and that hustle you have to just go to a networking event. So I want to meet XYZ,
Yeah.
and then when it's appropriate, it goes a bit further. Can I talk to you about, you've been very successful,
Yes.
you're high profile, you've done what I'm aspiring to do. It's remarkable how often people do say, you've made a significant effort to reach out to me. Yeah, of course I'll have a chat to you. Not everybody, but a lot of people will,
Mm.
because a lot of people want to help.
And
Put back.
one of my actual current mentors now is a doctor from South Carolina, and funnily enough, I heard from him from a podcast, and he generally doesn't, he only trains practitioners in the US, but it was about weeks of me calling their office every morning until I
Being a real
got to know,
pain.
yeah, being a real pain. And
Yeah.
he's been, pivotal in our growth because they're quite advanced with what they do. So I knew I wanted someone who had been in the industry for much longer than I like, that I can imagine in here, that
Yeah.
I would find in Australia, that could help direct me in which way to go. And so I'm currently now on his 12 months intensive mentorship, but that wouldn't have happened if I didn't reach out and put myself out there. And that was like waking up at 4 a.m., calling and saying hi. And they turned me down at first. They did say, we don't take
Yeah.
people from Australia because of the time difference and it's not going to work
Yeah.
out. And I said, I'll find a way to make it work.
And then they realised you weren't going away.
Yeah.
And so, well, we better.
Just take her on.
This
No.
number 5 child,
Yeah.
she's going to be on us. But that's why where you are today, Rosie, because you've just got that, the hustle, energy,
Yeah.
desire to make things happen, and it's so evident in the way you chat about your business.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. It's wonderful to hear. Just a couple of things to finish off.
Yeah.
Do you have 2 questions? Do you have any real heroes that you can talk about, that you listen to, read about? And secondly, the big question, if you were running the Australia's small business department
Yeah.
at a federal level, what are the couple of things you would do to supercharge our SME economy? But first, the
Yeah.
mentors, heroes.
Mentors and heroes. So I would say, okay, there's a few. Let me try and think. Mentors. Okay, mentors. I'm going to sound a bit cliche here, but definitely my dad. My
Yeah.
dad being just growing up, I saw his work ethic, which was just paramount. I've never seen I don't think to this day someone so hardworking, however, also so present. And I think, when it comes to business, I look at you look at I met a lot of business owners and company owners, and so I look at, when you look at success, it's not just you in business, it's also you in your life.
Yeah.
It's very hard, I think, as a business owner to find that balance where you have your family, your social, and then also your business thriving as well. And I know now myself how hard it is to get that balance. And so to see him, he essentially started with Australia, and he actually opened the company in Asia. So he opened in China, in Thailand, in New Zealand, and watching him be able to do that as I grew up, but also be the most present dad as well is phenomenal.
It is phenomenal, and it's definitely not cliched. It is so
No.
great to call out your dad. I reckon that's cool.
So
Yeah,
he's definitely one of my I'm one of his
yeah,
biggest fans, I think, forever.
yeah,
Um, and then, when it comes to I guess in my industry, mentor wise, there's two that's really in the top of my head, and that's Dr. Craig Conover. So he's the doctor I was speaking about from Carolina. So
oh yeah,
he's the way he perceives the industry we are in, and he started this over 25 years ago, is very hard to break into, and also accepted by a lot of the government bodies, and the way that he just strives, and his passion as well. So he definitely taught me the things that I could definitely take away from
yeah,
him is a purpose. So really, really honed in on, as long as you have your purpose there, your business will thrive. And so he's definitely one of the figures that I look up to.
excellent. And then
Yeah.
if you that I'm polling, asking every guest
Yeah.
about if they were running the small business department.
Yeah. What would I do?
What would you do? We're going. This is
This is it. Yeah, this is an interesting question. I don't know if this is relevant.
they're
I
all
would
relevant,
definitely
Rosie.
increase the threshold for payroll tax, because it's been about 5 years.
Yep.
Sitting at 1.2 million, and as everyone knows, everyone's salaries has gone shot up through the roof.
Yeah.
So that's number one, which I feel is a very hard. It's a very hard to be hit by that tax, because you're essentially getting a little bit, I guess, penalized for hiring more people, which I don't understand. That's the one I would love to change.
Yeah. Look, it's come up a couple of times, and
Yeah.
it's a really valid one. And we're not. This is just about over the next couple of months, accumulating from people running businesses,
Mm.
what they would do, and we'll put together a trending or a list of these things.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
to
if I could say
circulate.
get rid of payroll tax, I would say that.
Yeah.
I don't think that would happen, but at least increasing the threshold, I think,
Yeah.
would definitely help, because it is, I think, the one tax that I look at and I go, that's a hard one to swallow, because
Yeah.
you're trying to grow, and then they want a percentage of, just after you hire a certain amount of people, which is crazy, because then they also want you to hire more people. So
This is where it's counterintuitive, and it's anti-growth. Yeah, it's a whole lot of things. So thank you for that, Rosie.
yeah, no problem.
That's really great. Look, so genuinely enjoyed the discussion today.
Me too.
Thanks for taking time out of what would be a really busy schedule.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed this talk. One of my favorite talks. Thank you.
It's tops. Just if someone wanted to reach out, what is there an easy way to do that?
Yes, to the business.
Or to you,
Or to
or the
myself?
business? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So my email is Rosy, so ROSY at ivyleaguedrips.com. I love giving advice anyway, because that's essentially what I do with all my licensees.
Yeah.
Or our website is ivyleaguedrips.com, which they can just inquire through and reach out to me as well.
Yeah. Okay. Look, if you haven't picked that up, it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
But, so again, big thanks. I really do wish you well over the next
Thank you so much.
years and decades, because you got a lot of runway, and I look forward to tracking your success, Rosie.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
All the best.
Thank you. Bye.